Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm Jeff.
Thanks for listening to the Stanching Tyranny Hour. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and pull up a chair while we start the march toward liberty.
That doesn't make sense. How does one march while in a chair?
Good question. You can figure it out. You're the engineer.
Well, stay tuned and we'll let you know on 1450 AM WPG.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Happy last weekend of 2012.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Everybody going to be missing 2012?
I don't think so.
No.
We're going to talk about 2012 this morning. A lot happened, a lot of milestones to talk about, and I'm afraid none of them are good.
Yeah, and we'll talk about 2013. And I don't know, I just get the feeling there's going to be a lot more milestones in 2013.
Yeah,
and, we'll see.
2013 has that ominous ending on it, too.
Well,
not that I'm superstitious or anything,
right.
but it is 2013 after all.
Yeah,
Yeah. So.
And, of course, we have the fiscal cliff as well. What a great way to end the year.
Yeah.
Then they have
fall off a cliff.
These politicians act like they're actually doing something that's really a bunch of phony baloney.
Well, I love the heartwarming story of the lawyer in Connecticut.
Yeah,
to sue the state on behalf of the children, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was traumatic, granted.
Right.
But what makes a 6-year-old who's been, went through that, what makes them and their parents feel better about it than $100 million,
well,
really? I mean,
50 after the lawyer takes his
right, of course. Yeah. But anyway, we'd love to hear your thoughts on 2012 and the upcoming year 2013, the fiscal cliff, any of that stuff. You can give us a call, 609-407-1450. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
I'd love to hear what you think about 2012 coming to an end. Is it a good thing? Do you wish that we had more 2012? Do you wish that 2012 ended a little sooner than now? A lot of people think that, I think.
Yeah.
And what do you think about 2013? What do you expect to happen, and where do you expect us to be 1 year from now?
Yeah, that would be an interesting thought to hear. So give us a call, 609-407-1450. But, of course, all weekend long we're going to be hearing about the fiscal cliff. And the politicians are working hard trying to broker a deal, and they flew back from their holiday vacations, and because the people need them, and all this and all that, and wow, isn't it great?
Work.
Yeah. So the fiscal cliff, and really it's political theater. We realize that, don't we? It's really just a bunch of phony baloney. It's to make us think that the politicians are doing something, when in reality they baked the cake fiscally for this cliff decades ago.
Right.
And one can say we started falling off the cliff in roughly 2001, 2000 even.
2000 even, yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been falling. It's just that now we're approaching bottom.
Yeah. And, so the latest, I guess it was as of yesterday or the day before, was that Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner says
TurboTax Timmy.
Yeah, he's ready to implement extraordinary measures.
Oh, good.
Because the debt ceiling's coming up again.
Yeah, I think
apparently Monday or
the last day of the year. I think we're supposed to hit the debt ceiling.
Yeah. So he's ready to pull out.
Well, I know he's a big proponent of just doing away with that finicky debt ceiling.
Yeah.
And just why do we need it? I mean, we're always raising it, and it's just being used as a political tool, and why not just get rid of it and be done with it?
Well, I think my prediction is that will most certainly be part of the deal. Is some sort of debt ceiling, unfettered kind of deal will be baked into the cake. But the other thing,
it has to be, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the worldwide economic conditions, and all of the central banks are all out printing.
Right.
And the big thing that they worry about is a nation's currency rising against other currencies, which hurts exports.
Well, we just saw that. I don't know if listeners have noticed this, but Japan has a new prime minister, president, or whatever they call it over in Japan. And one of the first things he did was say, well, and the headlines were so misleading on this, but basically the headline said Japan wants to ensure U.S. Dollar supremacy.
Right.
Well, no, that's not what he wants.
No, he wants to devalue the yen so that their exports remain competitive.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to keep up with the United States Federal Reserve rate of printing.
Right.
With their own equal rate of printing.
Yeah, so the yen was at like $80, 80 yen per dollar or something like that, and he wanted it to be at 90.
Mm-hmm.
And so they printed a substantial amount of money in order to affect that. And this is what we're heading for in 2013, our prediction.
Right. Because it's not just Japan, it's also Europe, the Euro.
Right.
And mostly all of the world's currencies are tied to the dollar.
Yeah.
So that when we print, they have to print.
Right.
They have to.
But Tim Geithner, I know you know this, but but we talked about Tim before. He's a proud CFR member.
Oh yeah, he goes back in the it's all in the family. That
proud CFR member.
Thank you very much.
Just like Hillary.
I am delighted to be here in these new headquarters. I have been often to, the mothership in New York City. But it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department.
Isn't that great?
We get a lot of advice from the council. Will mean I won't have this far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
Oh, thanks, Hillary. She's doing the work of the people. Isn't it great?
Maybe Hillary, you should have to go farther. Get rid of them saddlebags.
But here's the question too. Timothy is a member of the CFR.
Of course he is.
So my guess is he went down to the CFR headquarters. Since they're all convenient.
They probably carpooled.
Maybe they held hands and walked.
Well, they probably held hands and skipped.
They probably did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like a couple of school kids.
They probably have a great time down at the CFR. Mm-hmm. Getting their
how
orders. They should proceed.
Or not their orders.
Their scholarly recommendations.
Right. Yeah.
For the people.
They should do.
For the people.
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Hey, we have a phone call. Let's go to Carl. Hi, Carl.
Hi, Carl.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
You guys did the impossible. You found Hillary. Is she going to speak about Benghazi now?
No. She's been holed up in the CFR offices down the street from the State Department.
Well, if she does speak about Benghazi, it's only because the CFR is allowing her to.
Right. They'll tell her.
She'll have to ask Henry Kissinger what he thinks.
Yeah.
Okay. A few days ago, one of our elected officials, our sheriff, and somebody head of some toy collection agency, they drove up to Connecticut. I mean, I had read in the paper they have warehouses full of toys they don't need anymore. But our group went up there with a truckload of toys.
I saw that.
But let me say this: the children cannot have enough toys.
Right.
What do you guys think about that?
I read in the paper that they literally said, "Listen, don't bring any more.
Yeah.
Don't bring any more. We'll tell you what we need. Don't bring any more, particularly toys." And And I see what you mean because this bad thing happened.
Right.
And so, what's our answer? To bring toys?
Come on.
Yeah, I know.
And what are we teaching these kids?
So I think, Carl, it illustrates a...
You mean children up in that town that are survivors, I guess, get toys, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, toys make things better. It's emblematic of the societal fabric of America to say that the answer to these problems is more material goods.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff. More stuff. Let's give them stuff. And that'll make them feel better because in America, stuff is what makes you feel good. Is kind of the message I'm hearing.
And where do you think most of them toys are made? China, you think?
Oh yeah, guaranteed. Guaranteed. Did you hear, Carl, about the lady who opened up a package of Christmas decorations? And there was a note from a Chinese factory worker, basically saying, listen, I'm writing this note because I'm essentially stuck here as a slave. I'm forced to work, and they beat us and ridicule us and all that good stuff. And did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that. But I guess it must have been written in English, not Chinese.
Yeah, I guess it was. And it was definitely written in English. It wasn't very good English. In other words, you have the way that the Chinese people, talk.
They can get by.
And you could hear that in the way that the note was written. It was.
I'll have to see if I can find it.
Yeah. I think it was in Christmas decorations, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I want to answer question number 5. Who was
all right, go ahead, Carl. Let's see.
Who was the host of the Howdy Doody TV show? Was it Robert M. L. Smith? Did I win?
No, I'm afraid not. It was Howdy Doody.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you
for your can.
Okay, I'll try again next week.
Call in and hopefully you win the can of car wax.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay, thank you guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, so it was Howdy Doody, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I remember hearing that story about the toys getting shipped up there, and I don't know, I just couldn't help but feel that it's a well-intentioned response, of course.
Yeah, naturally, you want to try and ease their pain,
right?
But are there better ways to do it?
Yeah,
than that, and
right.
I think there are.
Yeah.
There's the whole family needs. The families of the survivors, they need to have a way to become stronger, and that should be where the efforts go, to maybe restore some families that were broken up over this and help them through the pain, because it's going to affect these kids for a long time, and toys aren't going to do it.
No,
I'm afraid, So
yep, it's the truth. But don't you worry. Getting back to the fiscal
cliff, yes, that's what we were talking about.
They're working hard on it. They're working hard.
I know, that's what they do.
They're pledged to work, through the whole weekend even.
Right.
Yeah, and cut their break short.
Yeah, well, next week their pay raise goes into effect, I'm sure, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's not part of the fiscal cliff, is it?
Of course not.
I hope not.
No, of course not.
Yeah, we want to make sure that they get their cost of living allowance increase.
Right. Yeah, well, that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So really, the fiscal cliff is baloney. When you look at the fact that just unfunded liabilities that they don't report on, they report on the national.
This is the off the record kind of stuff that they don't have to report on the balance sheet.
So they estimate that to be somewhere between $50 and $100 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
$50 and $100 trillion.
Yeah,
and that's here. Other countries have it just as bad. One thing that I read is this whole notion that Germany has their act together.
Yeah, we hear that a lot.
They don't have their act together. They're just as bad as all the other European countries over there. Right?
Yeah.
It's just this notion that because Germany went through such a debt spiral, decades ago, that they would never allow it to happen again.
Right.
Well, that's not true.
They are allowing
it to happen again. And this time it's going to be a worldwide problem thanks to the good old US of A, thanks to Japan, thanks to the Eurozone.
We're following the Europe's example, I think, it seems to me, as far as entitlements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's all European design, and we're all going to be led down this path of debt-fueled destruction.
Yeah, definitely.
And so it's scary. 2013, we're going to have to deal with some of this stuff. But let's take a call. We had Tony in Pleasantville.
Hi, Tony.
Hey. Happy New Year, boys.
Happy New Year. You must have loved that audio we played.
Oh, did she come out of her coma?
I think she's feeling better now, right?
Yeah, she's holed up.
She's coming back to work soon, I heard.
Basically, I want to win the prize Who's Buried in Grants, too.
Okay.
All right.
You get
three. I think the prize, what is it, a year's supply of Joe Theismann's prostate pills?
It is.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
How'd you guess?
I won't have to go to the bathroom for a whole year.
Right.
Talk about efficiency.
Yeah, what's the CFR stand for? You talking about Hillary? What's that? Full recovery? Is that what that stands for?
No, it's close.
CFR?
Close. It's Council on Foreign Relations.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
she would have talked to her husband about that. He had enough of foreign relations.
Oh, that's for sure. Yeah.
Bill loves his foreign relations. Yeah, especially the Asian foreign relations, from my understanding.
Well, when that whole prostitute thing happened in South America, wasn't Bill the first one down there to investigate?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. His philosophy was always carry a big stick, but don't make too much noise. But listen.
Because Hillary might be listening.
Might be listening. But,
I think that's Hillary's motto too, except her stick is a broom.
I want to add to what Carl said about the Sheriff Bayless there. I know Carl has an illegal alien living down the street with Connecticut license plate, and the sheriff got up there. He said, "Carl's right. Look at all these people with Connecticut license plates. I can't believe it.
Why couldn't they bring this stuff up for him?"
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I want to add to what Carl said also, because the guy that made that statement, they can't have enough toys. I'm sure maybe he was speaking for himself, if you knew who the guy is that made that statement, because he always seems to have his hand out begging for everything. So even though he's getting $65,000 a year in pensions.
Yeah.
At least that's how I was told.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we there's a lot of that going on, and that's a pension for life.
I'll mention that on Bill Butler's show today too. I talked to Bill off the air about that, but they don't want any more toys. They don't need any more.
No, that's for sure.
Why wouldn't they stay down here, gentlemen, and help the needy kids? I'm sure we have enough down here. We either lost everything from the storm.
That's what we were saying.
Well, I'll tell you exactly why.
People that lost their homes in the storm and they're driving to Connecticut.
I'll tell you why. Because if they did that, it wouldn't be on the news.
Right.
Yeah, well, to me, it just seems like a publicity stunt. That's what it seems like to me.
Yep, that's definitely what it is.
I have to agree with you, Tony.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just hope that when if they drove up there, they had New Jersey plates. I hope they didn't get pulled over when they got to Connecticut. So,
Yeah, really.
Maybe they had a bunch of illegal aliens or something in the back of the trailer or whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
But listen, I understand there's going to be a big New Year's party at Hillary's house up there, so I don't know. You guys get an invite yet?
Oh, well, not yet, but the mail hasn't come yet today, of course. I'm sure we would.
Right.
Well, I'll leave you with this. I understand they're not taking any chances. They're going to have Hillary all padded up like you see those training officers for the canine dogs when he attacks the guy and bites him.
Right.
They're going to have her all padded up in case she falls over again.
Yeah.
Good. And the helmet on her head.
It's important to me that no expense is spared to make sure that Hillary is safe.
Protect our leaders.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. When she finally does have to testify, what do you think? She'll have one of those makeovers and a new hairdo, and
I already know what she's.
Oh yeah,
I already know what she's going to say.
What's that? Benghazi?
Yeah.
What's Benghazi?
How do you spell that?
Right. Yeah.
But
whatever, like Jim said, whatever Henry Kissinger tells her to say, I'm sure she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just hope, though, her all that pancake she wears doesn't melt under those hot lights. Boy, that'll be a pretty sight, won't it?
Oh yeah.
She'll look like a wax figurine.
All right.
All right, guys. You keep up the good work.
All right. Thanks
for calling.
Be talking to you next year.
Yes,
Sounds good.
Okay. Have a good one.
You too.
All right.
So yeah, Hillary. She's always getting it. Tony, he just loves Hillary.
Tony can't wait for her to be president in 2016.
Yeah.
That's coming.
That's for sure.
That's coming.
Tony's going to have material for the next 25 years.
Right, absolutely.
So Tim went down to the CFR to find out that he can pull out the extraordinary measure.
Yeah, what's the extraordinary measure?
Well, it doesn't exactly say.
Although it is extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. Yeah, and that's in quotes, extraordinary measures.
Yeah. But no clue as to what this extraordinary measure is?
No clue. But, see, the thing is, what we have to realize is that no matter what, they're only going to nibble at the edges of this thing. right? Because really there's nothing they can do at this point. There's nothing they can do.
Well,
they can't reduce the debt, right? Because there's no willpower to
There's no political will to do it.
They can't reduce the deficit because there's no political will to do that either. Now, understand that what we think is irrelevant, right? What the American people think really doesn't matter at this point. And we can see that in all the laws that have been passed over the past 4+ years, even more.
I'm going to say the exception is one thing, and that's entitlements. People don't want to give up their stuff.
Well, and if anything, I can agree with people on Social Security because we were sold on this whole idea that this was quote-unquote insurance,
and we paid
it's our money, and they're putting it in a little boxy box piggy bank and making sure it's safe.
It has your name on it.
And that's baloney.
No, it's not true.
Yeah, it's baloney.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't have these programs, even though we shouldn't.
Well, we shouldn't have
for the people that are expecting that. Yeah, they should have it. Right. I personally, I'm resigned to the fact that we'll never see that.
Well, we won't.
You will never see that.
No, we won't.
And
we won't.
I've accepted that, and so we got to plan accordingly.
Right.
And I hope more people are thinking like that because we just can't afford it.
So here's the reality. Here is the Democratic Party will want to, of course, increase unemployment benefit, not cut any welfare or anything like that.
The fiscal cliff deal.
And then on the other side, the Republicans, they'll say, oh, well, we have to get rid of these entitlements, but they won't want to cut a dime off of the military spending, right? Which is way out of control. Way more than we need.
Right.
To keep us quote unquote safe. Here's a simple fact: the military is not, as of today, as of 2012, going into 2013. The military is not there to keep us safe. The military is there to do political conquest throughout the globe.
Right.
And that's why in 2012 you had more soldiers die of suicide than you did of actual combat deaths.
Right. That's not a health issue. That's a moral issue.
Yeah, because they're realizing what they're doing out there, and they can't handle it.
Right.
They can't handle it, and it's unfortunate.
Understandably so.
And those things are only going to get worse as these currency wars start to unravel. Mm-hmm. When you have Japan...
If I could say just one more thing, the real troubling part is these currency wars can only have one outcome.
Oh yeah,
and that's war.
That's a shooting war.
Yeah, because that's how it ultimately gets paid.
Definitely.
So
that's the only way it'll get paid.
Yeah,
because you have to have blood in the streets.
Right.
You have to.
Right. It's got to happen. Yep. So let's go to Jim in Longport. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. You know, you got to know history.
Mm-hmm.
And all empires come and go.
Yep.
Right.
And this one's going to go just like the rest.
Yeah.
And as far as, and the people don't understand because they don't know history.
That's
but they're
true.
about to get themselves an education just like they did in Europe 80 years ago, 90 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're about to get an education.
So can we ask...
the one that they're not going to like.
Yeah. Well, can we ask you, Jim? What's your thoughts on what we're staring at in 2013?
Yeah. What do you think 2013 is going to be like?
It's not going to get any better.
No.
They're playing games. They're playing the shell game.
Yeah.
You see, they can't stop. We're not dealing here. They used to say that the politicians spend money like drunken sailors. We're past that.
Right.
We got drug addicts here.
Oh,
when
yeah.
it comes to money, they're like drug addicts.
Yep.
And like you said, they don't have the courage, the will, or anything. They're not interested, sir. They're not interested in you and your partner that's on the radio. They could care less.
They don't give a rat's
This is about
patootie.
power and control.
Right.
Let me tell you how this is going to wind up, okay?
Yep.
This is going to wind up, you're going to have in this country part socialism, part fascism, and part communism. You're going to have all three.
Yeah.
You're going to have it all. And the people, unfortunately, just don't get it. But they're going to get it. Unfortunately, this is what people have to go through. It makes no difference what the names are, who the rulers are. It makes no difference as Obama, Bush, Robespierre, Oliver Cromwell, Napoleon. It's all the same.
Right.
It's in the game.
Yep.
And it makes no difference what the names are. Yeah. This is what you have when you have governments. They create the chaos and the wars.
Absolutely.
And they want power and control. Look what we've had here. We're like any other country. We've had a Revolutionary War, Civil War. We had anarchy in the streets in the 30s. There's nothing new here.
Yep.
And this is a violent country. It's always been that way. I don't care if you want to talk about the Earp Boys in Tombstone, Arizona, or Quantrell and his Raiders in Lawrence, Kansas during the Civil War, or what happened just now in Connecticut. This is what it is. This country, and by the way, when they say we're going to get rid of the cigarettes and guns and this and that, all this stuff is here to stay. The guns, the alcohol, the drugs, the gambling. The only thing going away is us.
Right.
All the rest stays here.
Yep.
And it's all nonsense. And, of course, they feed the people the BS, and they go for it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But as far as this country, boys, I mean, you can talk now till 5 years from now. But this is the way it's going to be, and all empires. See, the only sin here with these guys is getting caught. That's the only sin. Other than that, it's full steam ahead.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. Thank you very much.
This party is over.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right, Jim. And to hear what Jim's saying. Thanks for the call, Jim. To hear what Jim's saying, I hear something very loud and clear. Number one. I don't presume to think that what you and I say is really going to make a hill of beans difference to politicians and the powers that be and all that sort of thing. Right? I don't presume to believe that.
Yeah.
But what I do think we can make a difference in is hopefully that people sit up and pay a little bit more attention and understand that we do have power.
Right.
If we choose not to participate in the rigged game.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Jeff mentioned earlier about Social Security and the utter fact, the likelihood that we won't see a dime of Social Security, him and I, and people our age. You know, we're in our younger 40s, and people our age and younger, there's a good chance you're not going to see a penny of it. And so what we need to do is accept that.
And
not
prepare.
really cry about it, but accept it.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Don't get mad about it. Don't get violent about it. That's not going to solve anything. But prepare. Because it's not going to be there for you.
Yeah, because the simple fact is that the government and the monetary system and the fiscal system and all those things can't continue the way they are.
Well, here's what's going to happen. And this has been in the works for so long, it's troubling. Over 100 years. We've talked about incrementalism and gradualism and the propaganda machine and all that, and it's all part of it. And Jim is right. You know, we're going to have a communist/fascist/socialist government, and the scary part is that most likely Americans are going to ask for it.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is this whole fiscal cliff thing is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to have a bad crash.
Because of the currency wars
in the economy, and we as Americans are going to turn to government and say, do something. And of course, government knew all along what was going to happen.
Yeah, and
they wanted it to happen. I mean, this is right out of Cloward and Piven.
No, it's right out of the playbook.
It's right out of the playbook. They make the crisis, and then they know that people will turn to government to ask for the solution, and the solution is going to be fascism. Communism,
it's going to be more government.
Socialism.
A solution that they had already planned on rolling out.
Yeah, that's
but they
knew
that they couldn't roll it out without this crisis
they need a
that
crisis.
They manufactured in the first place.
Who was it? Rahm Emanuel says, never let a crisis go to waste.
Right.
And that's what's being done
to us. It's the old problem, reaction, solution. So our best way to combat this is, again, declare our independence by saying to ourselves and to our government, I'm not going to participate Now, that doesn't mean do illegal stuff.
No. But you still pay your bills. You still pay your taxes. You don't get violent. You obey the law. But you don't participate in what they're trying to force you to do. The whole consumerism and the increasing debt. They want us to behave badly. Right. They encourage it.
Because bad behavior, moral degeneration actually enhances government power. Right? Yeah. That's why government propagates these kinds of activities.
And government power, remember, government power is the arch enemy of liberty.
Yeah. The absolute arch enemy, and the way again, is to realize that you have to rely on yourself and don't ask government to do anything. Back in colonial times, politicians and government couldn't do anything.
No. I was just reading an article that was really interesting back in the founding of the country before the Revolution, late 1700s. The politicians were afraid of the people. Right. They were afraid, and rightly so. And they did this thing. If you were a politician, and at the time, a lot of politicians naturally supported the British government. We were still colonies, right? So if you were a politician and the people didn't like your policies because they didn't favor liberty and independence, they were more leaning toward government control from Britain. Right. You know what they would do? What? Pull your house down. They would team up and go pull your house down.
Just pull it down to the ground.
Pull it down. Well, they would start with where you worked, wherever your office was. Let's say you were a tax collector on behalf of the British government and you had an office somewhere. They'd pull that down, and then they'd ask you to resign. And if you didn't resign, then they would go to your house and they would pull your house down.
Wow.
Yeah, and then hopefully you would resign. Yeah. But the message was loud and clear.
Yeah, you didn't do anything against someone's individual liberty.
Right.
And where have we gone where now we're the complete opposite? Mm-hmm. We don't, Americans in general really don't seem to mind having their individual liberties encroached upon.
I read a story
in the name of freedom and all that stuff. I just read a story.
Safety, I should say.
Right here in Atlantic County, I believe.
Yeah.
A high schooler. I don't remember what town it was. But a high schooler was doodling in his notebook.
Right.
And apparently he drew a doodle that the teacher or whoever it was found to be
offensive.
They said that the doodle was either weapons or a magic hand.
So
flames coming off.
Either way, clearly it's violent, right?
Yeah. So of course the high school staff member called the local police
over a doodle.
Yeah, and the police did the reasonable thing, which was to go to his house with bomb sniffing dogs and sniff around and
right.
And golly gee, they found chemicals
in the house.
Oh. Which when combined could make an explosive. What do you think about that?
That's clearly the only reason that he would have ammonia and bleach in the house is for making bombs.
Right.
It couldn't have been for cleaning.
Yeah. Well, it says right there in the article that when combined, although they weren't combined and are found in many households.
Oh, that's nice.
Make a bomb.
So do you hear that, people? If you have cleaning chemicals in your house, obviously you have bomb making material.
You have evil intent.
And why do you gotta hate? Why do you gotta hate so much?
Also, a number of
electronics
were found.
Oh, electronics.
Yeah, and there's little electronic little doohickeys. And
there's obviously if you have electronics in your house, you're up to no good.
Yeah. So apparently the local police did this, and ultimately, thankfully, they found that they didn't need to press charges.
They didn't need to press charges?
Yeah, they didn't press charges against the young man.
Well, that's good. And I mean, they shouldn't have, clearly.
Because he he didn't really do anything other than draw. So I am glad to hear that the police, decided on that.
Yeah.
But going back to electronics, he takes electronics apart. Apparently, when like a VCR goes bad or something like that, he takes the boards out, pulls off the capacitors,
the
motors, and all that.
There's a lot of stuff you can do with that.
There is.
We do that.
We
have buckets of electronics in our basement.
In our basement, because when an electronic piece of equipment goes bad, there's a lot of good parts to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you take those parts off, and you can build things. You can teach your kids about resistance and electronics and how things work. And look, if you do this and this, that little light blinks. Isn't that neat?
Mm-hmm.
So is that going to become a crime now? Because I guess you could take all these little bits and make some sort of bomb out of it. I mean, this is getting crazy. And it's just an illustration of the reactionism that goes on. The thing that really is
well, I think the real issue is with that school administrator.
Yeah, well, here's a quote from...
Why isn't that person being charged with false imprisonment or whatever?
They should be.
And that's ridiculous.
And I venture to say that the school should be sued.
Yeah.
There's
one I would agree with.
Yeah. For wrongly having this boy arrested who did nothing wrong. They had no reasonable suspicion for the kid. Apparently he's a good kid. Yeah. He's never been in trouble or anything. And yet they send the police and bomb
guilty until proven innocent.
So here's Stephen Ciccarello, who's the high school district superintendent. He actually praised the teacher who called in the boys doodling. He says, quote, "I'm thankful that we had a staff member that saw something that caused her some concern and that she had the sense to report it to school officials.
Yeah, well,
these are things that teachers receive training on all the time."
Yeah.
So, Steve, what you're basically saying is you're so great at teaching the see something, say something to make parents wonder if they should send their kids into your school, because what you're teaching them to be is good slaves.
If I had kids there, I'd be after that guy's job.
Yeah, I would be too. I would be too. I don't know how people put up with it. I really don't.
Why do they put up with it? I don't understand.
And this notion that they're keeping it safe. Oh, well, if it saves, what if he did do something?
Right.
Well, baloney. So that's what we're reducing ourselves to? Every little thing is this clue into a violent act, and so everybody's guilty until proven innocent. You're not allowed to do anything. A kid can't draw a fiery... He's 16 years old. That's what they do. For heaven's sake, people. Why are we letting these governments and these administrators run ripshod over us and our kids?
Well, what they're doing is they're we've said it before, they're creating an environment in the schools that will turn the kids into
good prisoners,
compliant.
That's what they're making. They're training good prisoners.
Who follow orders,
right?
Who don't disturb the apple cart.
Yeah. So
no creativity, no freedom,
you don't want
ingenuity.
That. No,
can't have that because it might look like something that's violent.
It might be used till evil intent.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what's happening in our schools.
And isn't it sad that we react so quickly and so swiftly to nothing, right? That we just react. This whole school shooting thing, all the things that are going on around there, despite the fact that this story has as many holes as Swiss cheese in it.
Yeah.
Right? That we're going to react and allow politicians to infringe even more on our freedoms. And this is what we want to hand our kids.
Yep.
And we want to lock them in little jail cells and say, well, kids, at least you're safe in there.
Never let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
So, 2012, I have some numbers here that I wanted to go
over. These ought to be great.
These are great. These are great. So, in December, we hit a new all-time high for food stamp recipients at 47.7 million. Compare that with 31.6 million in just 4 years ago, December of 2008.
In the 1970s, about 1 in every 50 Americans were on food stamps. Now it's 1 in every 6.5 Americans.
Yeah. Can we round up and say 7?
Well, we could.
Okay. Yeah, 1 in every 7 Americans is on food stamps.
Yeah.
See, this is the Cloward-Piven strategy.
Oh, yeah.
Because once the financial collapse happens and the people don't get their stuff,
right,
they're going to be mad.
Yeah.
And when they're mad, they're going to demand more government.
Yeah. So if an economic collapse happens, understand that it's by design. Right? It wouldn't happen despite the government trying to keep it from happening. No. They might try to make it look that way. That's why they're having this fiscal cliff talks and all this stuff. They're trying to do something, right?
That's their job after all.
Let's look at Barack Obama, and let's look at his past, and look at his ties to Bill Ayers, and their disciples of Cloward and Piven and all that stuff. And basically, they need a country to collapse so that they can come in with the solution.
Right.
And understand, this isn't a Barack Obama thing, right?
No.
It would have happened no matter who was president, including Mitt Romney.
Well,
because
just on that, one big thing happened in 2012 is we had the election.
Right.
And Barack Obama was elected. But the interesting thing about the election is who actually won the election.
Right.
And that is nobody.
Nobody won the election.
51% of eligible voters chose not to vote.
Correct.
So the majority of people recognize that it's
a rigged game.
It's a rigged game and refuse to participate.
Now, of course, the media doesn't report it that way.
No.
Why? Well, because they're all part of the game, right? I mean, they're all CFR-backed institutions that are all tied together, people. Look this stuff up yourselves. Don't take our word for it. Look it up. Do Google it, Wikipedia search, whatever it is. But the fact is that this is all baked in the cake.
Yeah.
What we're going through now and what we will go through likely in 2013.
Yeah,
it's all by design.
And you'll hear in the media that we have a divided America, and the implication is it's divided, R's and D's.
Right.
But the fact is we have a divided America that's liberty-minded people versus statists. And that's what the real divide is.
So here's another fact. If you add up the number of people on food stamps, it now exceeds the combined populations of Alaska, Arkansas, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, Hawaii, Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Maine, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Oregon, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Utah, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wyoming.
Wow.
How's that?
That's great.
All those states, all their people are on
all
food
those
stamps,
people
essentially.
That's great.
Yeah.
One I have here is median household income has fallen by $4,000 a year compared to 4 years ago. And in fact, its median household income continues to fall in each consecutive year.
Yeah, and most people, most listeners likely have experienced that. That is, of course, unless you work for government.
Sure.
Then you likely did not experience that.
Yeah, well, that's a great stat right there.
Yeah.
I mean, almost 500,000 federal employees make at least $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's 22% of the federal workforce, which calling federal workforce, that's just silly. Federal workforce.
Yeah,
federal work force.
Right, that's not.
Yeah, that's
what
oxymoron, is it? Yeah, that's what that is. So, just for comparison.
Here's what I like.
Yeah.
All those, how many people is it making over 100,000?
500,000 federal employees.
500,000. And you know what's funny? The people will call them public servants.
Yeah.
As if they're doing it just because, they love the people and just doing good.
They do it for society.
Warms your heart.
Yeah, but that, in 2006, that was only 12% of the workforce. So now it's 22% of the federal workforce making over 100,000 a year.
Yeah,
22%. Let's call it a quarter.
Yeah.
All right, a fifth if you want to be technical.
All right.
That's a lot. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. The global share, U.S. global share of GDP has fallen from 2001 at 31.8% to 21.6% in 2011. So, is there any reason to think that we're in any kind of recovery? We just heard the other day about, there's a housing recovery.
Yeah.
That's baloney.
Yeah.
We got to stop listening to the mainstream piped into the house media through all of them, including NBC, CNBC, CBS, Fox, any of them, because they're lying.
Well, and what they do is they report these stories like that one, that housing is in recovery, and they imply as to the reason that it's in recovery.
Right.
You know, the implication is that things are getting better overall for middle class America. And just looking at the stats here, again, $4,000 a year, the median household income has gone down since 2008. Yep. Gone down.
Yeah.
That's not better, and that doesn't make for a healthy housing market, I'll tell you that. What does make for a healthy housing market?
Federal tax code that's $3.8 million words long.
Absolutely. Yeah. 3.8 million words.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
why was
well, foreign investment. You know, we're most likely we're losing one of our biggest assets in this country, and that's our land.
Yeah,
our housing.
Well, that's true, because what they don't tell you, what they don't report to you on the housing quote unquote improvements that you're hearing about on Fox and all those other channels is that of those increasing home sales, 20% were cash deals.
Okay. So you know that's not middle income America.
Correct. And 27% were investors.
Right.
So that's almost half.
Yeah. So
are made up of basically people, scavenging at the bottom and giving this false notion of a recovery.
I would love to find out how many of these investors, funds and stuff like that are held by foreigners.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
They are.
So
getting back to the wonderful U.S. tax code, it's 3.8 million words long. What do you think of that?
I think we should make it 4 million words, because I like even, I don't like the 0.8. So if we could add a
probably by the time the whole fiscal cliff thing done, that probably is not a problem.
And of course, why stop there? 5 is a nice number, 5 million.
Yeah.
If we can do it in increments of 5.
Of course, I've mentioned before, I'm a big proponent of flat tax.
Yeah.
Flat tax is 0.
Right.
Yeah.
Which,
I love that. Of course, that is a big joke.
Yeah.
That notion that would ever happen. The only way, the reason why that won't happen is because it's right in the Communist Manifesto that they want a progressive income tax.
Sure.
So that'll never go away.
That's their playbook.
Right.
Yeah. So let's see. I have another one here. There are almost 15,000 federal retirees collecting at least $100,000 a year for the rest of their lives.
Isn't that great? And they include such names as Newt Gingrich,
I love him.
Bob Dole, Trent Lott, Dick Gephardt, and Dick Cheney. They're all such conservatives.
Yeah.
They're fiscal hawks.
Right.
Yeah, they're conservative, all right. As long as they get their $100,000 plus a year pension.
That's $1.5 billion a year, right?
Right.
I'm doing the math right?
Yep.
So
Here, how about
you think that would make a dent in the whole fiscal cliff deal?
Well, they wouldn't sacrifice that, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But they'll take people's Social Security, and they'll pass this. What's that new Unchained CPI?
Oh yeah, that's coming soon to us.
Yeah, I actually read an article that actually was saying that that's a good thing for people.
Of course it is.
Isn't that hilarious?
Yeah. Who wrote that? Krugman?
I don't know. I don't remember. So just so people knew, what Unchained CPI means is when you get your Social Security increases, they're going to calculate it on Unchained CPI, which will likely be lower than the actual inflation rate. Why? Well, because
CPI is as it is. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the reason is because if they do a price check on steak, let's say, well, you could always eat hamburger instead of steak.
Yeah. And then when that becomes too expensive, well, you can replace your hamburger with beans.
Right. And so they won't increase the steak cost, even if it is increasing, because you can always just buy hamburger.
Right.
And they won't increase the rate of increase of hamburger because you can always buy beans.
Right. So
Isn't that great?
So that the
government's looking out for you, seniors.
Is flat.
They're looking out for you. But as long as we're safe from the Muslims coming over here,
right?
As long as we're safe from that, I am happy.
Me too.
I'll eat my beans. Give me beans. I'll dress them up with some barbecue sauce, a little hot sauce in there, mix them up with some bacon. Of course, the bacon might be too much.
You got to substitute the bacon. You can have. How about some pork rinds, chickaroonies?
Pork rinds, chickaroonies. I'll mash them up and put them in there. It's close. It's pork fat.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Mix them up with the beans. I'm good. As long as...
And if that's too much, you can always just buy a bucket of lard.
As long as Osama bin al-Qadi isn't coming over here with his M16 and shooting at me.
I think it's Osama bin Talibani.
Osama bin lately.
Pretty good.
And Osama been late for dinner.
Yeah.
Of beans and chickaroonies mixed. Yeah, I hope we're not getting Glenn mad talking about food again.
Sorry, Glenn.
But anyway, I digress. So let's go back to, how about this? This is great. So, did you know that U.S. taxpayers spend more than 20 times as much on our royal family of the Obamas than the British do for their royal family?
They're not the freest country on the planet.
That's right, we are. That's right. So, like that 16-year-old kid over in Atlantic County.
Well, obviously, he's a terrorist.
His freedom.
Right. Yeah.
His freedom to draw things that he decides to draw.
We're the greatest country in the world, Boog.
That's right. I keep forgetting that.
Yeah. So of course I would expect nothing less for our leadership.
Our aristocracy?
That's it, our aristocracy.
Our rulers, our overlords, yes. So let's pinky out. Pinky out.
Excuse me?
All right. So, so the national debt is over $16 trillion. It's going to keep going up. And up and up and up and up.
We've accumulated as much debt in the last 4 years as we had in the previous 224 years.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
And the national debt now is more than 5,000 times larger than when the Federal Reserve was first created only 100 years ago.
The Federal Reserve.
Yeah. Don't get us started on that.
There's nothing federal, and they have no reserves.
Yeah. So that's a review of 2012, and boy, we're getting towards the end of our hour.
Are we really?
So we have time, maybe a couple predictions or thoughts on 2013.
Yeah.
Maybe not a lot, but it sure ain't. It ain't looking good. I can say that much. It ain't looking good because these trends are likely to continue.
Yeah, they have to. And so what we'll be looking at eventually, and it's hard to pinpoint when this is all going to happen. But the first thing is hyperinflation, because eventually this money that's being printed will work its way into the consumer economy. And
the government tells us inflation is good. It's deflation that's bad, according to the government.
Yeah, right. Yeah, inflation is good for government. And that's
really, if you think about, all right. I just have to explain this and think about this here real quick on inflation, right? The government thinks inflation is good, right? And if you think about it, I can see why they would want inflation. So it's really simple. All you have to do is look at the progressive income tax. So there's all this talk about people that make over $250,000 a year, and they're the rich people, and they got to be paying more. Well, what happens?
Fair share.
What happens when an income of $300,000 is like an income of $60,000 today?
Which will easily happen.
Which will easily happen in an inflationary environment. What do you think, people, that the politicians are going to do about the fact that now they're taking, a lot more of your income that isn't real?
Yeah, because now
the spending power isn't there.
$300,000 doesn't buy much.
Right.
Compared to now. I mean, you can buy a nice house for $300,000.
Yeah.
In this environment, we're talking maybe a car for $300,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
the problem is that they're not going to change the tax
See,
structure.
that's the beauty of it.
Because we'll all be rich.
Right. And the people won't realize, because what they'll do, the people will scream and yell that the car manufacturers and the oil companies and the food producers, and they're all raising their prices, and you got to do something, and the politicians will come in and say, well, we're going to put price controls, and you can't charge more than $25 for a gallon of milk, and that's highway robbery and blah, 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 right?
Right.
And so we continue down this road that Jim called about earlier, that really we keep asking the government for the solution to our problems instead of looking at ourselves and saying, you know what, I'm going to take the power into my own hands and become the solution myself.
Yeah.
By refusing to participate, by doing things like learning skills, learning how to become self-sufficient, learning how to do your own things, grow your own food, all the things that we used to do as a country, and we've lost.
Yeah, and so we have like a minute left, so I want to say, what can you do? What can listeners do? And there's a lot you can do. You mentioned just a few of them there. Absolutely. New skills, new knowledge, things that you may have never considered doing on your own before. Learn how to do them. Learn how to be self-sufficient. Another one, get out of debt. If you have mortgages and credit cards and stuff like that, pay them off as quick as you can. We're in an environment right now, we're hearing how great debt is because rates are so low, and now's a great time to take on more debt. Don't believe it.
Yeah,
don't fall for it, because that's what they want. Pay off your debt, learn new skills, become self-sufficient, produce your own energy, and you're on your way to freedom.
And that's what we're all about here in the Stanching Tyranny Hour. We'll see you next year.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening.
Champ and Company, Sunday mornings at 9 on WPG, Atlantic City.